On Friday night, Caitlin Clark entered Gamebridge Fieldhouse already incensed. Not at the opposing defensive strategy, not at the Golden State Valkyries. She was utterly, unabashedly incensed at the false, derogatory story. Every transcendent athlete experiences a terrible, defining breaking moment when they recognize that they are engaged in a demanding, multi-front battle. Additionally, Clark utterly destroyed the dishonest media establishment while seated at the press conference podium the day before tip-off. She rectified the precise, undeniable injury timeline that had been purposefully misreported all week by staring straight into the cameras.
And I actually went back and looked, because of all these narratives that are going crazy online, about when I told my mom I wasn't going to play the game. 4:47, and you guys found out at 5:20. So one of the most important people in my life found out 40 minutes before you guys.
That's Caitlin Clark telling the whole basketball world that the timetable was extremely tight, making the idea of an injury reporting cover-up mathematically ludicrous. She was more irate than she had been during any press conference this season. And the very following night, she turned that unadulterated cinematic wrath into one of the Indiana Fever's most devastating, engaging, and weaponized performances ever. Welcome back. WNBA Pro is this. And in order to capture the most brutal, vindictive, and combative performance of Caitlin Clark's professional career, we are tearing the doors off the hinges today. We are skillfully fusing the cold, hard, unquestionable analytical credibility of a 90-82 victory with the explosive, primal rage of a celebrity pushed to her extreme psychological limits. Not only was Caitlin Clark's performance against the Golden State Valkyries a masterwork, but it was also a clear example of psychological warfare to the league, to the media, to all the stories that attempted to discredit her. The physical attack she endured, the double technical that unleashed a monster, and the brutally honest statement from the opposition head coach that demonstrated Clark's complete unstoppability will all be discussed. Allow me to take you through this basketball game's true geometry and savagery. The game film depicts an absolutely insane ST because the box score just provides the numbers.
They kind of did everything they could to stop Caitlin. And you got to give Nakase credit, because she is the guard stopper. That's her thing. That's her thing. She's able to stop guards. And she did everything to try to stop Caitlin. It didn't work.
There was a full-scale physical conflict during the first half. Coach Nakase, the head coach of the Valkyries, brought a very precise defensive strategy to Indianapolis. One of the WNBA's most intelligent and perceptive defensive players is Nakase. Since her historic run at Iowa, she has been carefully going over Clark's game footage. She was familiar with the left step-back's mechanics. She was aware of the Logo 3's precise range. She was aware of Clark's clever delaying technique, which makes room for the pull-up jumper. And in order to remove those particular shots, she created a defense strategy that was solely based on authorized physical assault. Every catch, the Valkyries threw numerous bodies at her, causing constant disruption and unrelenting aggressiveness, making Clark extremely uncomfortable and preventing her from falling into her instinctive, extremely deadly rhythm was the stated objective. Additionally, Nakase's defensive strategy caused genuine issues during the first 2 quarters. It was almost impossible to make comfortable catches because of the physicality that interfered with the timing of the numerous defenders. However, the Golden State Valkyries gravely misjudged Caitlin Clark's psychological makeup if they believed that this degree of approved bullying would cause her to shrink.
Before we get to the Gabby Williams, what?
Right before the break, we got a little John going on. Caitlin says, "Hey,
look,
you and me, Hayes, you
Kelly,
and me."
Look at Caitlin blowing her kisses. Caitlin blew her kisses, bro. Look. So no, it was Janelle Sloan and Caitlin Clark. Referees had to step in. Look at Caitlin, guys.
The tension finally broke after the first half's ultimate finale. With her head down, Clark drove hard to the basket and swatted at a loose ball in Valkyrie forward Janelle Salon's arms. Salon objected to the additional interaction right away. She made direct physical contact with Clark's face. They began staring at each other with unrelenting jaws. The benches began to move in the direction of the hardwood. The umpire promptly issued double technical fouls after Veronica Burton had to intervene bodily to separate the fighters. 1 for Salon, 1 for Clark. Halftime, both sides went to the locker room with the intensity of a game on the verge of a violent explosion, the air totally sucked out of the arena. The impact of that particular double technical on the course of the second half is not being discussed by anyone in the mainstream media. Allow me to describe a generational competitor's mindset. Petty fights are not something that Caitlin Clark chooses at random. She doesn't start pointless physical altercations. She absorbs the contact and she weaponizes it. A perfect storm of competitive, pure rage was formed by that particular confrontation with Salon, as well as the tiring week she had just spent dealing with the back injury narrative and the toxic media attention. A generational talent cannot be broken by cheap shots. All you do is awaken a monstrous creature.
It's damn near altering the game, bro. It's just damn near altering the game. Let me pull this up real quick. Let me pull the game cast back up real quick. So it's another timeout. So the Fever call a full time. I would definitely like call a timeout. I don't know what happened. I got to see what happened, guys.
In the third quarter, Caitlin Clark emerged from the locker room and fully embraced the dark side of the force. She confidently strolled straight to the logo, which was 33 feet from the hoop, after bringing the basketball up the floor and pulling up a 48. The game is tied in front of the home fans, who had been arriving with doubts and empty seats. She arrived from a different zip code and swished it brilliantly following a double technical and a really frustrating week of media deception. She didn't simply jog back on defense after that. She turned straight to Tiffany Hayes, the seasoned guard for Valkyrie, entered her personal space, and spoke pure, unadulterated garbage. Not in a hostile or malevolent manner. However, the precise, horrifying manner in which respectful apex rivals disparage one another during a crucial conflict. Clark made a statement. Hayes responded with a statement. And the Gainbridge Fieldhouse audience became unquestionably electrifying. The exorcism took place on the court, and in order to completely destroy the plan that was in front of her at that very moment, she was physically venting all of her rage over the lies in the media and the Valkyries' defensive hacking. The cold-blooded trash language and the 33-foot logo 3 perfectly capture Caitlin Clark's personality. Not the player in a decided game who is pulled with 7 minutes remaining. Not the player whose injury chronology is misrepresented by beat reporters in the area. She is the superstar who utterly dominates the basketball game after a week of utter crap, hits a logo 3, and disparages an experienced all-star.
Aaliyah Boston off Kelsey assist. Caitlin Clark makes 2 free throws. Tip Hayes hits a 3. Sophie Cunningham makes a free throw. Caitlin hits a big 3 to tie it up from like 30. From 30. They go hit a 3. Hines Allen's okay. And then suddenly it's like Caitlin makes a real tough layup and 1. She makes a super tough and 1 to give the Fever the lead for the first time. Caitlin misses a circus shot, then hits Sophie.
Lexi Hull doing it all on that defensive possession. Clark. Oh! From another stratosphere!
Nakase's entire defensive strategy was forced to make a frantic adjustment when Clark made that impossible shot from the logo. At that precise moment, the passing lanes burst open, and the transition assists began to pour like water. With 22 points, 9 incredibly effective assists, and 4 three-pointers on 9 tries, Clark completed the evening with a true masterpiece. She played for 32 exhausting minutes. Because Clark is simply too offensively talented for any scheme to contain for the entire game without the defensive players suffering an unsupportable physical cost, the Valkyries' game plan entirely collapsed in the second half. And the Indiana Fever's entire ecosystem flourishes when Caitlin Clark plays with such brutal ball-dominant efficiency. Aaliyah Boston discovered her full potential. Boston put on what may have been the quietest, most devastatingly overpowering 16-rebound performance in the team's history. She scored 20 points on an exceptionally effective 8 of 15 shooting, dominating the painted area. This club becomes a formidable, championship-caliber threat when Clark is masterminding the transition game and hitting Boston with ease. However, you don't have to rely just on our word to establish complete credibility. After the last buzz, hear what the opposing coach acknowledged.
16 rebounds with 24 seconds left in this one. Caitlin Clark don't look like she's going to get a double-double, but you never know. You just never know. But they out fouling, so I doubt she get it. 22, 9 and 2. 22, 9 and 2. Solid numbers, bro. Caitlin Clark been averaging 20 points a game, guys.
One of the WNBA's most talented coaches is Natalie Nakase. She worked as an assistant with the Golden State Warriors as part of her long CV. She watches the movie non-stop. She was also brutally honest about what she saw during the 90-82 defeat. The Valkyries were totally unprepared for Clark's precise laser-guided passes, which Nakase publicly acknowledged. Nakase realized that while you can prepare for the logo 3 and the left step back, you cannot prepare for a basketball savant who can identify your defensive weakness in real time and surgically exploit it, the ultimate hallmark of an elite generational player. Clark simply made the impossible adjustments. She deliberately seeks out your fatal weakness and fixes it, rather than merely using her own skill set. Officially, the Indiana Fever are 4-2. Leah Boston just had her greatest game of the year, and Caitlin Clark is in perfect health. There is no denying the momentum. The entire league is afraid of this Caitlin Clark, not the extremely secure 23-minute version, nor the load-managed version. The enraged, totally concentrated, trash-talking, logo, 3-hitting, team-carrying version. The Indiana Fever will be led by that apex predator during this extremely toxic season. She also reaffirmed her identity to every executive, reporter, and defensive expert on Friday night. WNBA Pro is this. If you want the daring, high-octane analysis that reveals the true tales behind the box score, hit the subscribe button right now and the comment section below. Share your most incendiary opinion. This team is just getting started, so hit the notification bell. We are recording every single piece of the wreckage, and the momentum is drastically changing. We'll see you in the upcoming video.